Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a Wednesday night edition of Sirhan on X, coming to you live from Cincinnati, Ohio, in the United States of America. And it is the 15th of July of the calendar year 2025, virtually halfway through the summer. And those of you living in the Cincinnati area, you know you're feeling the heat out here because we're feeling it in my part of town also, because it is getting sticky at points, it's supposed to be stickier for the rest of the week. Also, some rumored thunderstorms supposed to be coming in. So stay cool, stay safe, stay warm, and there's all kinds of weather. And hope everyone had themselves a wonderful day today. I'm going to get right down to it. Lots to get to in the NFL and in the boxing fronts, which is my two areas I share my platform on. Those of you new to this, I see a few of you reaching out earlier this evening. I take a whole boatload of topics from past to present in both the NFL and boxing, touch on some basketball and soccer, talk about the ones of the past and the present. You put them together to hope for a better future in the world of sports content creation and sports in general, because we know how complex and wild it can be out there, especially when it comes to sports fandom. Before I get started, earlier tonight, I was give a huge shout out to Fantasy Pat Pucci and, of course, the fellows with the NFL Rumors space on the X platform earlier tonight for having me on as always. Hope you guys out there are doing well. Thanks for having me. I look forward to being on these shows many more times often. But now I'm going to go get right down to it. Some wild news here in Cincinnati again. And again, it's about the supposed rumor about Shemar Stewart. Apparently, he's supposedly training at the University of Texas A&M. Don't know what he's training for. You know, if he's going to go back or he's not going to play for the Bengals or whatever. All kinds of wild stuff today in the Cincinnati media and on the Cincinnati social media community. As we all know, it's all over the place because everyone here in Cincinnati always have their pennies all up in a bunch when it comes to certain things here in Cincinnati. Especially one of the biggest morons out here named Kelsey Conway, and I'll get to her in a second because she showed her cowardice today per usual. But let me clear this up so everyone understands what's going on here and what is the only situation with this. Apparently, Stewart went back to his where he went to college at Texas A&M. Apparently, he's supposedly working out. Rumors he was working out with a team, which my understanding is you can't do that at this point because he already declared for the NFL draft. Also, a part of it is rumor is he's just working out just for the sake of working out because there's no real team activities because we're still weeks away from the start of the college football season because apparently there's no one there he can work out with. I guess he's doing it more on an individual basis. But here's the thing everyone misses. If he decides to sit out the season for Cincinnati, and it's possible. Not saying he's going to do it or not. Nobody knows. But if he does sit out, he would be eligible for the 2026 NFL draft. But any team other than the Cincinnati Bengals would be allowed to draft him. But there's one thing he and his agent blatantly miss, and this needs to be discussed. We talk about all of this. If you're going to be sitting out the whole entire season, who's going to draft you? Because you should be lucky you were drafted at all, because I don't know who really had you on their draft radar when it comes to the Cincinnati Bengals or your particular player, Shemar Stewart. Now you're talking about this garbage of the language in an NFL contract that you guys were basically calling out. I get it. We know how bad the Bengals business can be, especially when it comes to this team and the team ownership, and as well as the city and the fan base. We know how crooked and twofold cowards the Bengals front office and the Bengals fan base is. We know how they carry themselves. I see it. And I get your point of view. But you haven't played it down in the NFL and you don't have a leg to stand on. That's a problem. Someone like Trey Hendrickson says it. Yeah, he has a leg to stand on. I get it because Trey Hendrickson's a proven commodity. We know that situation. I'm not even going to talk about that because that's still a chance that takes care of itself before training camp. But we talk about Shemar Stewart. You should have been lucky you were even drafted because I don't know who had you on their radar. We consider what you had coming out of college, the supposed projections you had coming out of college, and nobody knows what your talent was. And basically, at the end of the day, I don't know who really had you on their radar. And for the Bengals to actually draft you, you should at least be thankful and grateful you were drafted, because I don't know who had you in the first round draft board. Maybe some teams had you in a later round, second, third, or fourth round, I guess. I don't know. I'm not an in-depth analysis guy. I'm just more of a guy who just reads and analyzes what I see on the social media platforms and news and everything. as I told somebody earlier on the X platform, you bring the insider news, I'll bring the analysis. That's what I'm doing. And that's what we have here. For Shemar Stewart, he should be grateful he was drafted. The fact that he isn't and he's resorting to this should tell you everything at the end of the day in regards to Shemar Stewart, because that's what we have here in Cincinnati right now when it comes to him. So, I mean, could he sit out the season? Maybe. Do I think he will? He can't be that crazy, can he? Do I think something with him and the Bengals will get done? I think so. I get just a pinch of the hair as I think he would. Just like I think it will with Trey Hendrickson. I think it will with Stewart, because neither Hendrickson or Stewart have many other options outside of what they have right now. And in Shemar Stewart's case, he should be happy and thankful that he was drafted in the first round, because someone did not have him on their draft board other than the Bengals, I guess. Because, I mean, I'm trying to figure out who did. Because, it was a rumor of Pub over here in Cincinnati during draft week that he was going to be the pick. I didn't even know who he was until I heard the rumor mill over here as to they was going to draft him. I didn't even know who he was. I don't even think people in Texas A&M knew who he was. That should tell you what the situation is with him and how much of a leg he stands on when it comes to this particular situation with the Bengals, as well as the Shemar Stewart and his agent. Either he's that crazy, or he's getting the wrong advice from his agent, or they're trying to trace back the Bengals' bad ownership history, which everybody knows in Cincinnati how that's like, and the history of the crooked Bengals fan base. Everybody knows how that's like, and using that as a ploy to give Shemar Stewart the leverage, it's not going to work. He doesn't even have a leg to stand on right now, and if he thinks sitting out a season is going to get him in a better position in 2026, good luck, because that's not going to work. My guess is he may have had the potential, but I don't know if anybody over there at A&M knew what he had, because his stats were absolutely abysmal for a guy who was drafted in the first round. But then again, we are talking about the Cincinnati Bengals organization and fan base over here. So to tell you why he was drafted in the first round. Case closed on that one. I'm going to take advice of what some Bengals fans said on the X platform earlier today. At this point, the less we talk about Shemar Stewart, the better. Why? Because the news is just basically irrelevant at this point. And the Bengals have a bigger fish to fry, because they have to at least get rid of a dark cloud that's hovering them, which is missing the playoffs the last two seasons. And any conversation about Shemar Stewart just going to make it worse. That's part one. Now we're going to go to part two. And this centers around a pathetic, cowardly beat writer from Cincinnati.com who felt the need to get defensive, defiant, and become a bona fide coward on the internet. None other than Kelsey Conway. One of the most degrading human beings and liberal hacks. Sorry, I hate to use that platform, but that's what she is. That's no other way to describe her. Who resorted to cowardice on the X platform this morning after all the news about Shemar Stewart, attacking various news outlets, attacking various content creators when it comes to the Shemar Stewart situation, because her coward self always feels the need to stick her nose where it doesn't belong, and as a result, she felt the need to attack people this afternoon. Everybody knows me. I countered, but we know with her, when it comes to me, she tucks her tail between her legs and runs backward like she's running the Boston Marathon in reverse, because we know what type of a coward Kelsey Conway is. But I'm going to bring back what I used to do in the boxing fraternity way back, and I'm going to call it out on this. If you're going to be this kind of a defensive stance, if you're going to have this kind of a defensive stance on your views, if you're going to be a beat writer or someone who writes for publications or whatever, and you're getting this kind of a pushback, and you're resorting to blocking people, resorting to the block button, muting people, whatever, you have no business being in this sort of community, and you're just a bona fide coward, and that's what Kelsey Conway is. Reminds me of Dan Rayfield in the boxing community, and everyone in the fight community knows what type of a coward Dan Rayfield is. Kelsey Conway is basically the Bengals version of Dan Rayfield. She wants to attack people. She wants to slander people. But when people try to respond, she won't let them do it. She refuses to let the people have their say to her takes, because she's a degrading coward, as we all know here in Cincinnati. And like Dan Rayfield in the fight community, and every time she gets defensive, she feels the need to attack people verbally and aggressively, And that is where the problem lies. I said all along for myself, if I was going to come back in this, I open all lines of communication, good, bad, pretty, or ugly. I'm not hard to find. I mean, I entertain all kinds of debates. The only thing I think I ask is no threats of violence or anything else. But when it comes to someone like Kelsey Conway, and if you're going to resort to being this kind of a coward, you might as well just shut down your X platform and get the hell out. Because number one, your true colors came out today when you attacked people when it comes to the Shemar Stewart situation. Number two, you've been this way ever since you came to Cincinnati. And number three, your actually news articles basically stink. I mean, everyone here in Cincinnati knows this. I mean, if you're going to be a truth seeker, fine. But don't be a coward and resort to attacking people. That's what Kelsey Conway has resorted to. That's what Kelsey Conway has become. Her true colors as a human being came out today. And anyone that deals with her is every bit as bad as she is. So she can stay over there and I'll stay over here. I've said all along, if she wants to be that kind of a coward, have at it. She wants to talk to me, I'm open for communication. Just when you attack people and people counter back, don't become a coward and run away. That's what happened to Kelsey Conway today. Her true colors have come out, and it's highly recommended the less you deal with her, the better. She's not a reflection of the Bengals community. Actually, if you want someone good with the Bengals community, Jay Morrison is probably the only one I would trust in this situation because Jay Morrison is the only one that gets it, while Kelsey Conway, because she's a coward, doesn't. That's what it comes down to. To stay away from Kelsey Conway. She is toxic. She is degrading. She is pathetic. She is a coward. And today, she proved it. I have nothing more to add to that. I want to take my own advice and move on. Now to more football news. Sauce Gardner getting a contract with the New York Jets. This coincides after the day after Garrett Wilson got his. Joe Douglas, the general manager that was recently relieved of his duties, couldn't get the perfect quarterback and head coach combination. We know they went through every freaking coach and head coach possible at quarterback when it comes to Joe Douglas's tenure as a general manager. He does have some good hits during that time, and two of them came with Garrett Wilson and Sauce Gardner. What happened with Garrett Wilson? Got his contract yesterday, Gardner today. A lot of people saying it was an overpay. We'll see what happens in the next 2 to 3 years. Gardner said he wanted to be the highest paid cornerback in the National Football League. He got the distinction. You could debate it all you want. I thought he deserved it. You know, we'll find out soon down the line because over the next couple of years, there's going to be some people getting their contracts. Of course, earlier this year, Derek Stingley got one from Houston, and I expect in another year or two, Gardner's value is going to be superseded by Trent McDuffie, which the Kansas City Chiefs are going to find a way to pay him in due time. And a lot of people in Kansas City are already assuming that they're not going to pay Trent McDuffie. No, Kansas City will keep Trent McDuffie. I mean, they have some cap maneuvering they're going to do over the next year or two, which knowing Brett Veach, he'll get that done. But when it comes to Sauce Gardner, I mean, I don't know about the best quarterback in the league. I mean, there's still a guy like McDuffie, Patrick Surtain, among many others. But he's up there, and he got paid handsomely. You can say a lot of things about it, but he got paid, overpaid, underpaid. Have at it. But it was deserved. And I know he had a bit of a down year last year, but really the whole entire Jets team, especially the defensive side, wasn't all that great. And over the past couple of years, as we know, the New York Jets defense has been basically stout. Last year, it took a bit of a turn a little bit, but I expect them to get fully back to where they need to get to this season. You can credit Aaron Glenn, the head coach, the new head coach, for this because apparently he wanted Sauce Gardner to stay on a long-term basis, and he got that done. And they did the same with Garrett Wilson. Of course, they got Justin Fields. So things might be turning a little bit in Jetland over there in New York. But we'll see where this one goes. Sauce Gardner did get paid. Kudos to him. Deserved it. And speaking of guys that want to get paid, we know what's going on in Washington. Of course, it's Terry McLaurin saying he was embarrassed earlier today. The whole thing, he was disappointed. I'm not going to talk about the entire thing. I don't remember word for word. I'll acknowledge that. But summing up, he's just disappointed that there's no negotiation going on between himself and the team. I mean, can you really blame him? He's the number one target for Jaden Daniels, and that combination got them to the NFC title game last year, didn't they? I mean, you would think they would find a way to work things out. I still think they'll get something done, maybe on the short term, maybe 1 or 2 year deal, maybe max. But if you lose Terry McLaurin in Washington, who are you going to be throwing the ball to? Deebo Samuel? I mean, we know how reliable Deebo Samuel is given his injury history over there in San Francisco. So your best bet in Washington is to make sure this guy stays. I mean, there's no other way to describe it. You're talking about one of the better wide receivers in the entire NFL, obviously. You're talking about your number one option in Washington, simply put, because outside of him, who are you going to be going to? I mean, you have Ertz as your tight end. I can't remember who the tight end is. I can't remember his name. But other than that, who are you going to be going to? And you have a standout generational quarterback in Jaden Daniels, who's probably a top 5 quarterback right now, arguably top 4 with Mahomes, Jackson, and Allen. So where do you go with this if you lose Terry McLaurin? That's something Washington needs to really consider, because they didn't do the greatest job of finding someone who they can replace him with. I mean, my guess is they'll probably get something done, maybe within closer to training camp, maybe a short-term deal to keep both sides satisfied for now. Anything past that, I don't think anybody knows. But if you're Washington, you better get something done, because if you lose Terry McLaurin, who are you even throwing the ball to? I mean, I don't even recognize anyone on that roster outside of Deebo Samuel, which really you can't put Deebo Samuel opposite McLaurin, given that he spends a lot of time in the backfield, but gives him another weapon for Daniels. But you lose Terry McLaurin, I don't know what your options are at that particular position. Because if anything, because the depth chart after him really plummets, especially in Washington at that position. So Washington better get something done with McLaurin. You have a top 5 quarterback in Jaden Daniels, who I told everyone this guy was going to be a standout in his rookie year. I mean, I'm not going to say I told you so, but I said it. I'll show you guys my footage on the X platform later on. But you better get something done with McLaurin, because otherwise, your depth chart at the wide receiver position past him is going to be really, really at the bottom barrels. I mean, I don't know what the heck your wide receiver room looks like. I don't even know what the rest of the roster looks like right now at that position over there. Don't do this to Jaden Daniels, because you have a generational talent. Make him happy. And what it takes to keep Terry McLaurin there, make him happy. That's what it comes down to. You have something good going on right now in Washington. Keep it going. And speaking of Washington and Washington receivers, somebody finally got his due, and this has been a long time coming. This should have been done a long time ago. I don't know why it wasn't, but kudos to Art Monk for getting his number 81 retired among the Washington Ring of Honor. I can't remember a couple of the other guys. I know one of them was Sean Taylor. I don't remember the rest, but Art Monk is getting his just due. He belongs in that Washington Ring of Honor, and it's a crime how it took this long to get it done. Long overdue, well-earned, well-deserved. One of the more underappreciated wide receivers of all time. If we talk about top 10 wide receiver of all time, Art Monk is in that conversation. I mean, we talk about his accolades and stats. Actually, let's pull up his stats here real quick. If you look at his total career, 940 receptions, over 12,200 yards, 68 touchdowns. And we talk about his accolades, second to none. 3-time Super Bowl champion, first-team All-Pro in 84, 3-time Pro Bowler from 84 to 86, led the league in receptions in 84, and was a part of the 1980s All-Decade team, the wide receiver opposite Jerry Rice on that team when they put that together, and that's saying a whole lot. Art Monk was as good as anyone at that particular position for his time. I mean, didn't have the flash like some of the others did, but was a workman, was consistent, basically showed up to work every day. It was a key piece of why Washington won those 3 Super Bowls in 82, 86, and 91. And basically the go-to guy for 3 different quarterbacks when you think of Joe Theismann, Doug Williams, and Mark Rippon. And that is why Art Monk should have had this distinction a long time ago. Arguably the greatest wide receiver in Washington history. I mean, may have been some others out there, but it's about time that this guy got his due. Maybe part of it is Dan Snyder, which everyone in the NFL community knows what kind of a disgusting human being Dan Snyder was. The footage and the details came out there before he got outed. Maybe that had something to do with it. And of course, the name change. I won't use the platform to discuss that. But we talk about one of the all-time great, underrated, and underappreciated wide receivers of all time. Amongst the top of that list is none other than Art Monk of Washington. And it's about time that franchise gives him his recognition, and it's just due when they're going to retire his number. I think it's week 9 against the Seattle Seahawks when they go into town. But you guys in Washington, cherish this moment because he's earned it. He deserved it. Not only was he a standout player on the field, one of the more genuine good human beings off of it. And and that's something you can't say much about athletes these days because that's what Art Monk was. One of the premier wide receivers of all time, certainly worthy of the distinction. Wound up in the Hall, hopefully, if he's not in the Hall of Fame already, he gets in there because it's also well-deserved for him. His numbers stack up amongst some of the best of his time and maybe of all time. Top 10 wide receiver all time, in my opinion, is Art Monk, and he's getting his recognition, well-deserved, rightfully so. And speaking of guys who got paid and well-deserved so, Kansas City did it again. They paid Trey Smith, making the highest paid right guard in the NFL. That interior two-man combo of Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith set for the next few years. Because, last season, Humphrey was paid. This year, it's Smith. You can't put enough value of interior alignment in today's NFL, especially when you have a franchise quarterback like Patrick Mahomes. What does Kansas City do? They solidify the offensive line issues, especially when you consider what happened to them in the Super Bowl when they got dog walked by Philly's defensive front. So not only do they keep Humphrey and Smith, of course, they drafted Justin Simmons from Ohio State. They have a couple pieces hopefully they can keep intact. But Trey Smith is as good as anyone at that particular position, and he was compensated well. And it shows again why the Kansas City Chiefs are always playing chess while everybody else in the NFL is playing checkers. Because when you have the premier GM and Brett Veach that knows what he's doing, he did it again. And that's why you have this, and that's why the Kansas City run is still going to be ongoing, and they'll probably be the favorites to at least represent the AFC in the Super Bowl again, because he has the foundation with the head coach and the quarterback with Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. And when you have a franchise quarterback, you better have a wall to protect him. I mean, we saw for many years with Tom Brady and Peyton Manning in Indy and New England, respectively. Of course, later on with Manning in Denver. Dan Marino had one, of course, in Miami. Brett Favre had one in Green Bay, among many others. I can bring on a list of the great O-linemen for franchise quarterbacks. Unlike Cincinnati and Houston, who's basically writing a book on how not to protect a franchise quarterback, Kansas City is writing the book on how to do it. You invest in the offensive line. Granted, they lost some key pieces along the way. I mean, you talk about Tyreek Hill, Justin Reed, among others. But when you have a franchise quarterback, you invest in that offensive line to keep them upright. And that's what Kansas City did over the last couple of years with Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith. Now, of course, they had to trade Joe Thuney early in the season, but basically that's probably what the issue, the end result of this was going to be, because I think Brett Veach knew it. Traded Thuney when he had some sort of value. Granted, Thuney's performance in the Super Bowl didn't help because he was just dog walked by Josh Sweat, but he was playing out of position. But the Kansas City Chiefs are still going to be rolling, much to everyone's chagrin. Why? Because they have their foundation and they have a general manager that knows what he's doing. And they know when you have a franchise quarterback, you invest in protecting the guy. I mean, they did it with Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith. And if Justin Simmons can get back to the form he was at Ohio State before he blew his knee out, that offensive line is going to be doing some real big-time blocking. And we talk about valuing the interior of an offensive line. That's something that's been a lost art in recent years in the NFL. Because we can talk all the edge rushers and the tackles when they get to the quarterback. Sometimes the real pressure comes from up the middle, and you need guys in the middle, in the trenches, that's able to move the line of scrimmage and protect. And Kansas City took care of that over the last 2 years. We had a boatload of standouts at that positions, most notably Tyler Linderbaum over in Baltimore, who's as good as everyone. But as a two-handed duo in the interior, Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith, probably the best duo. Kansas City keeps them locked up for a while. Perfectly done. Maybe people in Cincinnati and Houston need to study what Kansas City is doing so we don't have to ask a question, how are they going to protect Joe Burrow and C.J. Stroud respectively? because apparently those two organizations don't know how to do it. Now into the world of boxing. And this weekend, a couple of huge, big fights coming up. I'll touch on those real quick. The first one is Bam Rodriguez going up against Phumelele Cafu. This is a super bantamweight unification fight. I'm expecting another Bam showcase because Cafu just won his last fight wasn't necessarily all that great. Got a gift decision. And you're basically facing a top 3 pound-for-pound fighter in Bam Rodriguez, right behind Usyk and Inoue. Bam Rodriguez at number 3. If he's lower than number 3, get checked for CTE. But Bam Rodriguez is going to have another standout, and he's basically trending up, and he's trending up fast right now in those weight classes. I mean, he put him in the ring with, he's handled. And he's carried the momentum after he just demolished a standout and won a Strata not too long ago. And I expect him to continue here against this so-called champion. He's going to handle the business against the champion, win that championship, unify it, and continue his rise. And I wouldn't be surprised within the next year or two, we're talking about this guy as the number 1 fighter pound for pound, because he's trending up, and he's trending up fast. And he was talking about at some point a massive showdown with Junto Natakani to stand out in those weight classes out of Japan. That would be a sizzler if they can make that fight. I mean, everybody's talking about Naoya Inoue against either guy, but I think Inoue has bigger fish to fry, which I'll touch on later this week. But Jesse Bam Rodriguez is hot. He's sizzling. He's the 3rd best fighter in the world behind Usyk and Inoue. And I expect him to maintain that position when he just demolishes his opponent. And I don't expect this to go any further than 6 rounds. Because Jesse Bam Rodriguez is the goods. Nothing more needs to be said. I mean, after he demolished a pro's pro and won Estrada rather effortlessly for the most part, that should tell you where this guy's headed. And ever since he beat Estrada, he's been rolling, and I expect the momentum to continue. And of course, the big one that's going to take place in Wembley, it's the rematch between the real heavyweight champion Oleksandr Usyk and the fake heavyweight champion Daniel Dubois. And watching the press conference today, you can safe to say Daniel Dubois' 5 minutes of fame as the fake heavyweight champion will end Saturday. Because he tried to do his Tyson Fury on Oleksandr Usyk. And as I said prior to the both Usyk Fury fights, if Tyson Fury can't find a way to break Oleksandr Usyk, nobody will. And that includes Dubois, the fake heavyweight champion. And I expect Oleksandr Usyk to just do anything and everything he wants to do to Dubois this Saturday night. I mean, people want to say Dubois looked better when he beat the declining Anthony Joshua. I'm not giving him credit for it because Oleksandr Usyk beat him twice before then, so that diminishes that. The only reason why Dubois got the fake heavyweight championship because he cried to the governing body wanting his championship, and Oleksandr Usyk felt sorry for the kid, so he handed him the belt to have his little nice mini tour as the fake heavyweight champion. But it's going to end Saturday. Oleksandr Usyk is going to show the world why he's the best fighter in the world, pound for pound, and he's just going to do anything and everything he wants to do to Daniel Dubois. The stare down earlier today basically validated it because Daniel Dubois tried to go Tyson Fury on Oleksandr Usyk. It's not going to work. Because I said, if Tyson Fury's antics wasn't going to get to Oleksandr Usyk, nobody will. And Usyk's fought a lot of tough, scary dudes in the amateurs and the pros during his time. Daniel Dubois is not even close to any of those guys. That says, tell you what to expect Saturday night. I mean, the only benefit Dubois has is getting embarrassed in his own home country of England, because that's what's going to happen. Usyk all the way on that one. I am very, very feel. My Oleksandr Usyk tribute. Now to the historical aspect of the sport. And one of them was of significance that took place over 94 years ago today over at Sheep Park in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. This was a fighter named Kid Chocolate taking on Benny Bass for the Super Featherweight Championship of the World. The story with this one, and we're going to trace some amateur history here a little bit before we divulge into this, is the country of Cuba's had some deep, deep amateur talent. Go back to maybe the top 2 guys you talk about are Teofilo Stevenson and Felix Savon, and many others. Some good pros that came out, most notably Joel Casamayor. But for this case, Kid Chocolate, better known as Eligio Sardianes Montevallo, was looking to become the first Cuban to win a recognized world championship. And we talk about his rise, nicknamed Cuban Bonbon, started his pro career sparring with, of all fighters, Benny Leonard and Jack Johnson. This is a featherweight sparring with a heavyweight Jack Johnson. And you know the stories on Jack Johnson, how vicious and scary Jack Johnson was. And this guy was sparring with Jack Johnson. And you talk about Benny Leonard, probably a top 5 all-time great lightweight in boxing history. That should tell you how he got into the sport of boxing. He had a chance to win the featherweight championship against a fighter named Badalino in 1930. Lost a decision on that one. And it was after that one he moved up to junior featherweight, got a 4-fight winning streak. Also in there, lost to a standout named Jack Kid Berg by a decision on that one. But he did get the 4-fight winning streak to put himself in position against one of the more intriguing stories of that era in Benny Bass. When we talk about Bass, he was born out of Kyiv, Russia, which is now Ukraine. We know what happened with the political aspect of it. Known as Little Fish, came to America at age of 3. But on his way to America, he had a shipwreck in the middle, so he got rescued and had to spend several weeks in Queensland, Ireland, before he can find his way back to the Americans, and wound up living in Philadelphia. And at age 10, the guy was selling newspapers and had a job at the Curtis Publishing Company, later known as the Saturday Evening Post, out there in Pennsylvania. He won the featherweight championship by beating a fighter named Rex Chapman. He basically, in that particular fight, showed he was a two-way fighter. Boxed, slugged, largely because he had a cut early on in the fight. Had to find a way to heal it at that point because he was getting cut and swelled up pretty good in this fight. But as the rounds went on, he found a way to get to Chapman in the late rounds. And you talk about a fight that had simultaneous knockdowns around 9, where both fighters traded white crosses in the middle and both hit the deck. Yes, a fight that had simultaneous knockdowns and hit the deck in the 1930s. Think about that for a minute. But he did went on to win the featherweight championship. He would eventually lose the title to the standout Torian Kazunori, one of the genuine all-time greats in the sport of boxing. You talk about maybe a top 20 all-timer in Kazunori. No shame in that because that's how great Kazunori was. But when he moved up to the junior lightweight division, he KO'd an individual named Todd Morgan, floored him twice in the second round to win the junior lightweight championship, which set the stage for what took place 94 years ago in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, in the backyard of Benny Bass. And basically what happened on this night, Benny Bass just got beat up all over the place. I mean, his eyes were cut, his eyes were swollen, accusations of a thumb in the eye, which all the photos showed it was actually a clean punch that hit him. And basically anything Kid Chocolate or Kid Chocolate, if you want to use the Spanish accent version of it, he did anything he wanted to do. And he basically just pounded on as the fight went on. He got stronger. He got better. Bass couldn't solve the offense of Kid Chocolate to a point where the referee had to stop the fight to win this on a knockout in the 7th round. And for the first time ever, we have a world champion out of the country of Cuba, and that happened to be none other than Kid Chocolate. One of the more unique fighters of his time. You talk about the Cuban background and basically a guy who was looking to make his mark. He did just that, and he won the championship, becoming the first to do this. He would make a couple title defenses later on before he himself in 1933 lost to the standout Tony Kazunori. As I said, with Kazunori beating Bass, he beat Chocolate. One of the premier all-time greats was Kazunori. No shame in that. But when you talk about foreign history making their mark in the States, this is way before even some of the ones we see today. This is like way back when we consider the fact that, it wasn't even thought of at this time. For this to happen was a major feat for Kid Chocolate, also known as Eligio Sardinas Montalvo. And when he just beat down and demolished a very good, tough, and durable Benny Bass to win the Super Featherweight Championship. He made history on this day. Kudos to Kid Chocolate. Actually, both guys have very interesting stories. I would recommend reading about these two, Kid Chocolate and Benny Bass. Actually, Bass's journey to America is a story within itself. It's absolutely a great story to read. And we're going to fast forward to some modern times. This one took place 36 years ago today at Lake Tahoe, Nevada. It was Evander Holyfield and Adilson Rodriguez. This was basically, technically speaking, a heavyweight eliminator because you had across all the governing bodies, the top 2 ranked heavyweights at the time. And it's basically Evander Holyfield moving up to heavyweight, beginning his march toward the heavyweight championship of the world, and greatness is what he was chasing. Fighting a very tough and really stout Brazilian fighter in Adilson Rodriguez. I mean, Rodriguez had some solid wins in his career. I mean, beat guys like Bone Crusher Smith, Quick Tillis, among many others. Going into this fight, this was probably Evander Holyfield's first real test against a real heavyweight, because he was basically fighting guys that Mike Tyson beat already, like Quick Tillis and Pinklon Thomas, just to name a couple. For people to take him seriously as a heavyweight, this is the fight he needed. And in this fight, the first round and a half, Adilson Rodriguez gave Evander Holyfield basically a good go of it, basically keeping him at bay, landing at will. Actually had a Brazilian crowd come from Brazil to Lake Tahoe to cheer him on as this fight was going on. And in the second round, both guys started to open up. The problem was Adilson Rodriguez opened up a little too much, threw a lazy jab, and then a counter right hand right on the temple of Adilson Rodriguez by Holyfield. And Rodriguez is down and out for the count, and Evander Holyfield wins on a second round knockout. The story of this one, and I bring this up because everyone still fixated on this whole Tyson Holyfield thing 3.5 decades later. This was a fight that closed all of the mouths of people who say Evander Holyfield couldn't compete as a heavyweight. He needed a standout like this. And Rodriguez was a pretty darn good fighter at that time. I think he only had like 1 loss going into this fight. For Evander Holyfield to perfectly place that right cross on Rodriguez to put him down and out, basically just silence all the critics about his ability to compete in the heavyweight division. Because when he came up, he basically just fought, guys Tyson beat, and of course a fading Michael Dokes in a give and take war before this. But Rodriguez gave him a good push for the round and a half, made a tactical error, the counter overhand right, and Rodriguez was down and out. And of course, this was at a time when all of the in and outs of Mike Tyson in and out of the ring started to add up and started to hit the tabloids more often. And the buildup for Holyfield Tyson started to begin, because he was officially the number 1 contender across the board. A week later, Mike Tyson knocks out Carl the Truth Williams. Evander Holyfield was at ringside, and everyone was starting to ask, when will we see Evander Holyfield versus Mike Tyson? Because the buildup started with this. Because people don't say it started when he went up to heavyweight, but Mike Tyson was still doing whatever the frick he was doing outside of the ring with his management team, while Holyfield was just fighting fighters and taking names. Tentative agreement for June 16, 1990. We know what happened 4 months before that. Mike Tyson got the bejesus beaten out of him by James Buster Douglas, so that went down the tubes. So Buster Douglas fights Evander Holyfield, who was the number 1 contender, had the call to the title. What does he do? The same way he knocks out Rodriguez, he knocks out Douglas with. Douglas threw the lazy uppercut from the other side of Ohio to Nevada. Holyfield casually moves back, the twisting overhand right, Douglas down and out for the count. Evander Holyfield's a heavyweight champion of the world. So what happens now? We get more build-up for Holyfield Tyson, tentatively set for November 8th, 1991. What happens? Mike Tyson fakes the rib injury, winds up in prison, and now everybody's still wondering if we're ever going to see Holyfield Tyson. While Tyson is busy doing whatever in prison, Evander Holyfield's fighting every comer possible, from Foreman to Cooper to Holmes to Bowe to Moore to Mercer to Alex Stewart. And basically in and out of the ring, wild circumstances with him. Everybody knows about, his wild fight series with Riddick Bowe, the loss of Michael Moore, which had the health implications where he supposedly went to a faith healer, of course, cleared the fight. Had the wild third fight with Riddick Bowe where he got the brains beaten off of him before, outside of the haymaker left hook, and people calling for his head. And he gets a nondescript win over Bobby Chiz. And of course, that sets up Holyfield Tyson. And we know what happened November 8th, 1996. The world was done a favor when Evander Holyfield just beat the brakes off of Mike Tyson from start to finish, in a fight that Evander Holyfield was as high as a 25-1 underdog. That's what the Holyfield-Rodriguez fight did 36 years ago today. It set this wave, this near 7-year wave, of wondering if we're ever going to see Evander Holyfield versus Mike Tyson. 2 times the fight fell through, both of them because of Mike Tyson's undoing, And even when he went to prison, people wonder if ever going to see it. So when he comes out, Evander Holyfield basically kept it to himself and said, there's going to be some zeros once that he comes out. And of course, Mike Tyson fights 4 irrelevant opponents before he fights Holyfield in 96. And that's why he got the brakes beaten off of him by Evander Holyfield. That's what the Evander Holyfield Adilson Rodriguez fight did 36 years ago today. It started the hype of probably the most anticipated heavyweight fight ever. Maybe you're talking about build-ups, maybe the most built-up in boxing history, because that was the one everyone wanted to see after Mike Tyson demolished Michael Spinks. Evander Holyfield versus Mike Tyson. Took him 7 years due to a lot of turbulence in and out of the ring for both fighters. And we finally got it in 96. But it was started 36 years ago today in Lake Tahoe when Evander Holyfield landed the right cross that flatlined Adilson Rodriguez and kept him down and out for the count. And it started a 7-year wave as to where we're going to see Holyfield versus Tyson. Crazy build-up over crazy times. And they had to go through a lot, up, down, in, and out to find a way to get it. And they finally did it. And I conclude on a real wild one that took place 30 years ago at the Great Western Forum in Los Angeles. This was Humberto Chiquita Gonzalez defending his flyweight championship against the standout from Thailand named Saman Sorjaturong. Saman Sorjaturong, before this fight, was known for being wiped out by Ricardo Lopez. I mean, if you guys know Ricardo Lopez, one of the premier mini big men of all time, the strawweight and super strawweight divisions. And Sorjaturong fought Lopez, and Lopez just dusted him off in 2 rounds. Going into this fight, Humberto Gonzalez had completed that wild trilogy with Michael Carbajal. For you fight followers, you know the 3-fight series they had. And he fights a mandatory in Sorjaturong who's flying from Thailand to Los Angeles with a following of his own people actually coming to support him from Thailand to LA. And basically, everybody thought there was going to be an afterthought for Chiquita Gonzalez. But boy, the Sorjaturong had some massive ideas. And boy, did he take advantage of it. Early in the fight, the flat right hand by Sorjaturong that floored Gonzalez early, cut him, which we know the Humberto Gonzalez career always been prone to cuts because he's a southpaw, likes to mix it up. Gonzalez, a true warrior, comes back, floors Sorjaturong twice more, once with the right hand. Another one, of course, with a couple body shots where Sorjaturong looked like I think he was hurt. He voluntarily took an 8 count to avoid the ongoing attack of Gonzalez as the fight was going on. And even though it looked like Gonzalez was starting to gain control, that face of his was starting to get beat up. And Sorjaturong took advantage of it. And what's the one punch you land against southpaws? Looping right hands. And that's what Sorjaturong started to do. It started to do damage to that eye of Humberto Chiquita Gonzalez. And toward the end of the 6th round, it was, of course, another almost like a straight right hand right through the guard of Gonzalez that put Humberto Gonzalez down a second time. And Gonzalez was up and started to wobble a little bit. And we start the round 7 off with explosion from both fighters. But it was Sorjaturong's punch volume and pressure that kept coming and coming and coming. Left, right, left, right, left, right. To where Humberto Gonzalez just couldn't take it anymore. And it prompted the referee to stop the fight. And in the 1995 fight of the year, you could probably say 1995 upset of the year, the Thailand fighter Saman Sorjaturong shocks the all-time great light flyweight Humberto Chiquita Gonzalez with a 7th round knockout to win the light flyweight championship. Thailand fighters have this deep-rooted passion when it comes to their own sport of boxing also. I mean, the names won't wow you. A lot of people, you throw a lot of names out there. I mean, I can't pronounce half of them, but if you dig deep into the deep history of the fighters from the Far East, especially Japan and Thailand, the 2 countries with this one, the talent is deep and the passion is deep. And you're talking about a deep rosters for both countries. And when Saman Sorjaturong came to the States and did what he did to Humberto Chiquita Gonzalez, it basically opened a lot of doors for the country of Thailand. I mean, Thailand had some very good fighters at that time also. Don't get me wrong. I mean, they did. But maybe the biggest win for that country took place when he obliterated Chiquita Gonzalez. And even though he really was floored twice, and it was an action fight both ways, I thought Sorjaturong just did anything and everything he wanted to because Gonzalez took a beating as this fight was going on. And when you think about what took place with this fight, a lot of Thailand fighters started to get more recognition, started to come more to the States to get more fights. Uh, Not there, but also some of the other Far East countries. Of course, the Philippines, we talk about guys like Manny Pacquiao, Nonito Donaire, and Jerry Penalosa. And of course, fighters from Japan and Korea over the years had their own deep passion and tradition. But one of the real ones that really, in the modern times, opened the doors for some of those Far East fighters, you could probably say it was Saman Sorjaturong, just beating an all-time great in Humberto Chiquita Gonzalez, who had a wild three-fight series with Michael Carbajal before then. Basically did everything he could to war off Sorjaturong, who was coming on as a fight wore on. But Sorjaturong was just way too much and basically hit his pedestal in the 1995 Fight of the Year. You could probably say the 1995 Upset of the Year when he came all the way from Thailand to shock the all-time great Gonzalez. Those fighters in the Far East, I mean, they have a deep passion when it comes to a lot of their sports. But for the longest time, we talk about the Far East fighters when it comes to the sport of boxing. It's deep, and it's deeper than you think. Just because we don't see them televised here in the States as we did, as much then as we probably do now because of all the international, internet technology with advancements among many other things. You could probably say those guys, when they put all the fights together, they know how to sell the fights, and that's what they did. And we talk about what took place with Saman Sorjaturong. It was probably one of the premier victories of all time at that moment for the country of Thailand, because they keep things more like in a tight culture over in the Far East. We talk about like Thailand, of course, the Philippines, was a couple of other countries I can't think of off the top of my head over there. Vietnam probably being one of them, and of course, Korea and Japan had their own share of fighters. Of course, we see the ones of Japan today of Naoya Inoue and Junto Natakani. But when we talk about the deep history of some of these all-time great fighters that come out of the Far East, one of the bigger moments came 30 years ago when Saman Sorjaturong did it. I mean, wild names of, if you can pronounce them, go ahead, have at it. But very good fighters, deep passion. They want to win when they step foot in that ring, and they have a passion that some other countries or some other fighters don't have. And as a result, that's why you had what you had 30 years ago. Just a terrific fight between two standout fighters. But Saman Sorjaturong went back to the Far East with this light flyweight championship of the world over the all-time great. And those fighters in Thailand, they are fun to watch. If you can pull them up on the YouTube or Rumble platforms, I recommend it, because they have such terrific fights. You talk about great will, high skill, among many other things, a deep passion, strong chins, and just ready to fight anybody, anytime. That's the Thailand fighters, and that's what Saman Sorjaturong did 30 years ago when he shocked Chiquita Gonzalez. I just watched the fight today, and I'm telling you, I can watch that fight 50 times. I'm always going to be entertained. It was just a terrific fight. No shame to Humberto Chiquita Gonzalez, who proved his greatness time after time, especially with that trilogy with Carbajal. But you had a driven fighter in Saman Sorjaturong, who was remembered for being obliterated by Ricardo Lopez, righting that wrong, hitting the top of his pedestal when he became the undisputed light flyweight champion of the world, because Yang Mung Wu, was in Japan for whatever reason he was. But that's why we had what we had 30 years ago. Deep passion, deep heart, deep skill, the desire to win. That's what those Far East fighters had that the UC have all the time. And that's what we had with Saman Sorjaturong 30 years ago when he just blasted out Humberto Chiquita Gonzalez. Just a standout fighter. Actually, for that division for the longest time, one of the more premier punchers in the light flyweight division. We talk about Sorjaturong. I mean, I think he had a match like over a knockout ratio in the 80s. I mean, that's a heck of a whole lot for that weight class. I mean, Carbajal tried to get a fight with him, but Carbajal was on his downturn, so that never materialized. But Saman Sorjaturong was a brutal puncher for that time from coming out of Thailand and in those weight classes. Just a terrific fighter. Must-read story also there, especially for any of those fighters in the Far East. Everybody knows what Naoya Inoue, Manny Pacquiao, and Nonito Donaire, but it goes deeper than those guys. It's a must-read. And that'll wrap up this edition of Sirhan on X. I will be back at it tomorrow night. As always, if you missed any part of the show, the audio versions will be uploaded on the Apple Podcasts, the iHeartRadio, and the Spotify apps. And as always, I always tell everyone, Make self-care your number one priority in all walks of life. If you take care of yourself first, good things will come your way. If you don't take care of yourself first, nothing else in life matters. Always focus on you. Take care of you first. Have a good rest of the night.